Welcome to CAUIM 8.4 New Features. In this video, we'll take a look at some additional new features that help to create a more unified product, enabling you to find and fix issues faster. We'll first take a look at the new Interface Metrics for Groups tab and functionality. Then, how to set the aggregation interval within analysis reports, along with the new CSV export feature. Next we'll look at the improved functionality and changes within Health Index. And then finally talk about CAUIM integration capability with ADA.
These are pretty quick and simple. I just wanted to touch on some of this functionality so you know it's there, and then cover maybe one or two troubleshooting tips if you're not getting the expected result. So the Interface Metrics for Groups works pretty much identically to the Interfaces tab for a networking device. You know, as you guys know, you can create a group of interfaces, and then previous to this release, you had, the data about that, the name, its alias, MAC address, things like that. On the Interfaces tab, we had some metrics information, so you could get some, utilization errors and discards on those interfaces. So we've added that to the group details view, so you get that same high-level view of your interfaces. That's the same as it was before, no big changes underneath the covers. So just like that view, if you get a view looking like the one I've got here, where you've got, no alarms and no data, all gray boxes like that, the most obvious thing to look for is that S&P collector isn't monitoring these interfaces. The biggest reason you wouldn't have any data is that you're not collecting data. There's a difference between discovering the interface and having S&P collector monitoring that interface. And then it has to be these specific metrics, the utilization percentage, errors percentage, and discards percentage. And each one of those has an in and out and a component. And you don't need both to have something show up. But, utilization in, bits per second won't do the trick. It's got to be the percentage one. On the tooltip, it'll tell you if there's, data far in the past or no data at all for this metric. So you can differentiate between you've never monitored this interface versus, the monitoring went down on this interface. If you've never monitored the interface, say no metrics ever or something like that, there's not much you can do at that point except go turn on S&P collector and make sure that the metrics are getting published. If the data is pretty far in the past, then you can click on where the metric would be in that little gray box there, and it'll launch in the PRD, so you can go back in time and sort of see where the metrics stopped monitoring. That'll also be on the tooltip, but sometimes it's nice to get that in the graphical format. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover on the interface metrics for groups. Like I said, it's the same functionality as elsewhere in the product. The next section here is the custom aggregation interval for analysis report. So this was a request to have more control over the way that the data is displayed in the analysis report. So by default, the aggregation interval is calculated automatically based on, sort of the size of the graph. And so it tried to give you roughly the same number of points on each chart, regardless of the size of the paper and all that sort of thing. So we've added the option to override that behavior, get a raw data output if you prefer, or select your aggregation interval that suits your purpose. The one thing to note on that is intervalization, can improve performance quite a bit, both in the data retrieval and the drawing of the charts in the back end. So if you're looking at a large data period and you select raw data or a very small aggregation interval, it could take longer to generate your report. If you're running dozens of scheduled reports, at raw data at the same time, you could get less performance. So that's just something to watch out for. And this one, again, is not very complicated. It's just an additional format for export for the analysis report. In addition to PDF and the Excel format, we've added CSV export. And there's not much debugging here if you're getting something that's unexpected. Really, the only thing I can recommend is maybe comparing against the Excel format. That's the tried and true one that, it's been out in the field for quite a while. So if you get discrepancies between the data between those two, then it's a bug rather than just the data is not what you expected.
Talk about the improved functionality of the Health Index and the change in the workflow. With the introduction of monitoring configurations within USM groups or the MCS, we identified that we could improve health indexing. By removing the policy engine and editor, we can now couple monitoring with health indexing at the USM groups. And how we went about doing that was UGS or Trellis currently is now delivering the USM group information directly to the health index probe. So how this works is that we no longer have to configure the group filters within the policy editor within UMP. The health index profiles are now configured within the health index probe UI within admin console. So you no longer go to the policy editor, you now directly configure health indexing within the health index probe. Policy editor and policy engine are no longer included with the UIM 8.4 release. During an upgrade of UIM, the policy engine will remain, so you'll still see that installed. However, the policy editor within the UMP is no longer available. So you won't be able to go in and do any editing for the health indexes at that time. If have used policy editor to create group filters for health indexing, those filters will no longer work, seeing that we're no longer using the policy engine to create those health index filters. We are now using health index directly. What we identified was that the monitoring administrator will need to create new groups for USM that were based upon the old filters. So if we have currently created those filters and they no longer work, we'll need to re-identify what those filters were and create groups that match. If they were using groups directly to apply those filters, all they'll have to do is go back into the Health Index UI and reselect those groups and reapply those health indexing configurations.
First thing I want to mention is that as we're releasing UIM 8.4, we're also releasing version 10.5 of both Application Delivery Analysis ADA as well as our multi-port monitor MTP. So 10.5 is available today and ready for download as well. A quick overview of Application Delivery Analysis and its capabilities. We'll talk a bit about the integration between UIM and ADA as well, and then walk through a simple use case which I think will demonstrate the capabilities that we're introducing with this integration. So first of all, a bit about application delivery analysis is what it does is monitors TCP application packets from the network into the data center and out again. Lets you measure round trip time, server response time, data transfer time, and more. And so we track and measure application response time. It does not require desktop or server agents and allows you to do the following. One is you can understand how well your network is delivering services to end users, so you're finally tying network to application to server, and you can obtain an overall view of what's happening on the network. So as I mentioned, you're segmenting response time into application, network, and server delay components, so you can now rapidly troubleshoot network performance bottlenecks and then maintain application performance as well. And so we have automated processes which measure and analyze the application performance for all TCP IP user transactions. These processes will then compare response times against thresholds and then automatically begin to investigate problems as they occur. So network operations groups and operations groups have key diagnostic data which will help quickly solve performance problems. So in addition to that, ADA will also monitor availability and application performance so you have a consistent set of service quality metrics for internal users and external service providers, even if there aren't any formal operation level agreements in place. And so ADA will not only start to measure and identify issues in the network, we'll also use baselines or averages. We'll establish an average to see historical performance in your network so you understand what's normal, and then you can compare the application server's combination of performance in a specific period to a historical average of past performance. And so it's not necessarily the case that crossing a baseline indicates a problem, but we will identify and isolate when there's thresholds that are passed and you see that performance falls out of the acceptable limit. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the capabilities of application delivery analysis. Let's now jump ahead and look at the integration that we introduced between UIM and ADA. And so really we understand what are the pain points. So you have in an environment where you're looking at historically network, server, application performance, you have many different tools that are that you're using to view application delivery data. You want to understand the network and system performance data. And you need to be able to quickly identify if there's an issue with the network, a server, or an application. And so how do you not only identify whether or not there's a problem, but identify downstream dependencies for a given server when you're trying to triage a problem? So you may have a chain where you're looking at a firewall, load balancer, web server, application server, database server. You need to be able to identify where is the issue is taking place. Not only is it in a particular server, but is it related to a server or a problem on the network. Okay, and then you want to be able to quantify if you're making a change to the network or to servers. You want to be able to understand, is there a change in the application performance when you make these changes? So that's kind of the pain point. Really what we're introducing here is the key features are we're providing an in-context view. You've got systems, applications, and application delivery performance all within UIM. We are displaying the KPIs to quickly identify if the problem is a network problem, server, or application. We've introduced a downstream dependency discovery capability and service that within UIM. You'll see that in an upcoming slide to really understand what, in a given server, what are the dependencies that that server relies on to deliver a particular application. And then we have trend views as well, which will quantify application response time if you're looking at a change that's been introduced, both pre and post change. So the benefits here are you have enhanced visibility across your infrastructure. You're able to detect, isolate, and resolve problems faster with intuitive workflows. And then you can ensure that you're delivering quality service post a change or post update. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of the pain that we think that customers are experiencing, the features that we've built, and how they address those pains, and the benefits of this solution. Next, let's walk through a quick use case and really demonstrate how can someone use this to identify and isolate and remediate a performance problem. So first of all, we're looking at the UIM. This is a USM home. We're looking at a server group that's already been established, and we're calling this the tick change server group. So you select the server group. You may also be able to start this use case from alarms as well. So you may be able to say this particular alarm, which originated from ADA, is pointing at a particular server based on a threshold which may have been crossed. And so you select the service, the web server. So we're looking at SC Exchange Web. Now you see, there's a high-level set of metrics for this server. So you're looking at processor queue length, memory usage, physical memory usage, etc. But really, what you see here is that the server looks like it's fine. What we need to do now is, given that maybe the alarm emanated from ADA, let's go ahead and look at the Advanced tab to see now the integration with application delivery and the metrics that are associated with it. So now within the Advanced tab, we can see one is on the right-hand side, you see the trending. You can see critical response time metrics in context for the server that we're looking at. You're looking at be able to isolate where the problem is, if it's on the server, network, or application. For each of these individual views, you can drill out directly to ADA and to get additional diagnostic detail in the context of a particular, for example, the graph you've clicked on or the table you've clicked on. We're also introducing a capability here which relies strictly on the integration between ADA and UIM. We're able to identify downstream dependencies. So you're also in this table showing not only here are the servers that we've identified as being that this server is dependent upon, but also we're showing in context the server connect time and the server response time. Be able to isolate, is there an issue that we see here related to a particular server in this chain of application delivery?
For more detailed information about how to use these and other UIM new features, refer to the documentation wiki or visit the UIM community to join in the discussion. The links can also be found in the YouTube description located below this video.